let's see if you've had this experience. You've been dreaming of a desired gift, hoping for it, maybe even dropping hints about it, wishing that you might really get this hoped-for gift. And then, joyously, that gift appears on Christmas Day. Then, before the day ends, the wheel has come off of the toy truck. Or the crystal bowl was dropped and breaks. Or there just are not enough batteries. And all of a sudden, some of that joy, just a bit of it, is broken. This Advent, I would like for us to think together and talk together about some gifts that don't break. You know, the season of Advent is puzzling to many Christians. The stories that are read during this season are by and large not childhood favorites. There is no star in the east guiding the Magi. There's no chorus of angels stirring shepherds to go and see the baby. There's no harried innkeeper. There's not even a touching moment when Mary ponders these things in her heart. The stories of Advent are stories that are dug from the harsh soil of human struggle. Think about a littered landscape of dashed dreams. These stories are told from the vista where sin still reigns supreme, and hope has gone on vacation. So many of us prefer the notes of joy and gladness in the Christmas stories a lot more than the Advent stories. And Advent also leaves us a little bit dizzy about time. Advent is not a steady, constant, time marches on kind of time. It's unpredictable. It's unknowing. It's unsteady. And in this unsteady time, we look for a baby to be born. Well, we know that that baby has already been born, at least born in us. And that baby is still being born in us. And so it can be a very confusing kind of time. It's a time when we talk about Emmanuel, just as we've sung. Emmanuel, who came and is coming and is among us right now. And so given all of this nature of Advent, it is no surprise that the prophet Jeremiah is the herald. We heard about the prophets with the prophet's candle. Much of the story told in Jeremiah, which is in the Old Testament, has to do with the threat and the destruction of the house of Israel and the people of Judah. The people there are in exile. Jeremiah is speaking to people who are in despair. Anyone feeling despair today?
It's just a way of saying it.
Anyone beginning to feel a bit weighed down by some extra stress? Or a little overworked? Even if it's fun stuff, there's just more of it to do? Or overscheduled? Or maybe even in this month of Advent, we have new and special health concerns or family concerns. I'm wondering, has your hope gone on vacation? If you're having any of these feelings or any others that you might feel in your heart, then welcome to Advent. the prophet Jeremiah is speaking to us. He reminds us of God's promise to provide the people a safe and just and peaceful future. God will bring comfort and hope. God promises to restore the people, to bring them together into community, even as they are in the midst of great suffering and despair. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you walked into church today, we have Noah's Ark sitting on the back table just outside the door. And when I was asked about the decorations, and that's kind of a funny conversation to have, people coming and asking me about what decorations to put up, and I'm thinking, I've never been here before, I don't know what you have. So put them all up. Put them all up. And so now we have Noah's Ark, and ever since I saw Noah's Ark sitting there, I've been pondering, why is Noah's Ark important for us in Advent and Christmas? Besides being fun to look at and having lots of animals, and Noah kind of looks a little bit like a shepherd standing in the back of the boat. Why is Noah's Ark something that we are attracted to in Advent and Christmas? Well, remember the story. There's a big flood. People are in despair. The future doesn't look too bright. They're told to take 2 of everything and get out of Dodge. They don't know what's going to happen. And in the midst of that boat ride, where things are unsteady, uncertain, just kind of like this Advent season, what happens? God makes a promise. God says, I will put my bow in the sky like a rainbow. And when you see that bow, you will know that's a sign of the new covenant. That I will always be your God and you will always be my people. My love for you will never end. Never end. And so we welcome Noah's Ark in this Advent season. We welcome the prophet Jeremiah. We welcome those who have gone before us, who remind us and proclaim to us in our context today that God is a promise that opens the door to hope. I love these words. The days are surely coming. That's how Jeremiah starts today. The days are surely coming when God's promises will be fulfilled. It doesn't matter how much our world might be crumbling around us right now, or how much we feel it is, or how harried or stressed or worried we might be. Jeremiah heralds for us that word of hope that says the future is coming. It's full of promise. It's full of possibility. And it reminds us that, gosh darn it, we might have to wait a little bit. We might have to wait till all 4 of those candles are lit. The waiting brings the promise. And sometimes it takes a little imagination. I love imagination. It can take us into so many thoughtful places and patterns. And so in Advent, I invite you to use your imagination. Think about the future that God is promising for us and for you. It's not a speculation. It's not a guessing game, but an imagination of what can be and what will be. And we know that because we can trust that God has provided for us in the past. And so we can imagine the shape of God's fulfillment for things in the future. And we know we don't bring that about just by our sheer will, but rather in our waiting, we try to place ourselves in a posture so that we might become partners with God in the advent of this new reality. Perhaps part of our meditation in this Advent season might be to ask ourselves, what partnership is God inviting you to participate in this Advent? How are we placing ourselves in a position to be ready to to have Christ enter our lives in a new way. We all long for the confidence that the prophet's words bring to us. We long for that righteousness that will be filling our lives. We long to know that God is with us, and that God is with us in Jesus, the incarnate one. You know, there's one more word I want to tell you about while we're thinking about getting ready this Advent, and that's the word righteous. That's a word that Jeremiah likes. Have you noticed it was used 3 times in 3 verses? Righteous. And it's not a word that's very common to us. We don't go around usually in our everyday conversation with our friends and families and talk about righteous or righteousness. And here we have it 3 times. The Lord is our righteousness. Jeremiah promises that there will be a righteous branch that will come to us. It is a time where the Lord is our righteousness. Sometimes, you know, that word carries a negative tone, and that's because we add the word self in front of it. You heard that? Self-righteous? So I want to invite us to learn just for a moment about a vocabulary word in our faith. Just like we taught the children about circle. Let's learn about righteous. Righteousness is one of the first words in the language of Advent. In today's passage, we hear it referring not just to God and Jesus, but to people. Righteousness is not just an attitude or an absolute standard. It refers to how we live in accordance with God's purposes. We began our service this morning talking about our mission, how we hope to live as disciples of Jesus Christ, how we live in accordance with God's purposes. It's doing the good thing and the God thing. It's doing right as opposed to doing wrong. It's a time of helping ourselves in our own spiritual growth and formation. It helps us think about how we live in just and loving relationships. And so this Advent, I invite you to meditate on being righteous. As you think about how you are readying yourselves for this new Advent of Christ in your life, how will we live as the righteous people of God? We come together today for the sacrament of Holy Communion. And it is in this sacrament that we are nourished by the hope of God's coming. And we participate in God's future. We hear the words of the prophets. We hear the promise of a new Redeemer. And we know the hope that the day will come when justice shall roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-rolling stream. And we share together in the covenant promised from God, that our life together will be one of community and love. And so let's get ready. Advent's the time to do that. To affirm ourselves as named righteous by God. And to reflect on our witness of that love in the world. To us, Jeremiah speaks, the days are surely coming. The days are surely coming. And what is coming is of God. And what is coming from God is hope. A gift that won't break. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Never get ready to finish.